안녕하세요 여러분, 월가워즈 시간으로 돌아왔습니다. 오늘은 제가 저 린스타 이렇게 혼자 나왔고요. 그 아주 특별한 게스트를 저희가 오늘 귀하게 모셨어요. So we have Douglas here.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Douglas.
Thank you for coming out.
Thank you for having me.
So it's been 1 to 2 months since the last time we met, and crazy stuff has been going on in the stock market
Every
ever
day.
since, of course. So we did cover a few issues on our live TV show today, but we wanted to cover some more stuff, stuff that we can talk on YouTube, right?
Yeah, because there's time restrictions,
Exactly. We only get to have about 13 minutes on our TV interview. So I do want to talk about a few more topics. But before we jump into the stuff, could you please, introduce yourself in the manner that you would like to?
Yeah. 안녕하세요, 여러분. Douglas입니다. Hi, everybody. I'm Douglas. The YouTube channel I run is theWalrusStreet. It's an investing-based channel, and I do a lot of kind of stock research from a fundamental perspective, and I am a big value investor. I wouldn't say that I'm as good as Warren Buffett or Bill Ackman, but I mean, I'm pretty good for an amateur. So I put out content every single week. I average about 8 videos a month. And, I'm just having a lot of fun with it. And I, before anybody, wonders if I'm a professional or anything, I have truly no financial professional training. I'm purely self-taught. I've been interested in investing for over a decade now. And I mean, Bloomberg is the only television channel that I watch at home, other than MTN.
Other than MTN. Okay, if you forgot to say that, it would have been problematic.
Bloomberg and MTN are the only 2 channels that I watch. That's what I endorse.
All right.
So, I studied in university science.
Oh.
So, a lot of the companies that I cover on my channel are biotech companies because I have, I think, a pretty good grasp of, the academic research side of that and the medicine and the practicality and, the possible total addressable market to see if these companies are even worth anything. So, I do cover a lot of biotech stuff. Lately, I've been focusing on commodities. But, I'm in Korea. I love it here. I've been here for 5 years now. I would speak Korean, but I sound like a kindergartner. And my girlfriend also told me that I sound like a girl when I speak Korean. So
you have a Korean girlfriend?
Yes, I have a Korean girlfriend.
Ooh.
And she's really nice to me, and she speaks English like 97% of the time.
I hope she's watching right now.
Yeah, she might if I tell her or if I pay her enough. Then she'll watch. Yeah. So she typically finds my investing stuff boring, I believe. So
okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, you do so much research about investment and everything, so I think you can give her, a good amount of insight.
Okay, so funny story. My girlfriend, I drone on and on about investing. It's kind of a natural thing in our relationships. We talk about what we're interested in with our partner, whether they care about it or not.
Of course.
And my girlfriend, to her credit, she's a great sport about this, and she takes in as much as she can. And she had me help her create a portfolio last December. And I ended up working with her to make a portfolio. Very simple. 12 holdings. It's 2 ETFs, broad market, and 10 stocks, 10 holdings.
Okay, that sounds nice.
And just since December 2020, her portfolio is up 27.5%.
27.5.
And we just checked it a couple days ago, and this is really shocking because 45% of that portfolio is VTI, which is a total broad market ETF. That's not a fast-moving asset.
Yeah.
So that 27% gain is coming from the other 55% of the portfolio.
Oh, I see. Okay, this looks like a very beautiful and helpful relationship.
I make her money and she makes me happy.
Exactly. So. Oh, that's amazing.
It's a beautiful relationship.
I wanted to ask you about your relationship, about with your girlfriend and everything, but yeah, I mean, I'm really happy for you.
Hey, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Are you happy?
Okay, I was just joking around. Okay, so, is there anything else that you would like to just address or talk about before we jump into the actual topics?
Yeah, so I do want to say I always tell people up front that I don't have any professional financial education. And I do that so that people don't blindly follow anything that I say. But I really think that business and finance, a lot of it is common sense and a lot of it can be self-taught.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not ripping on anybody who goes to university on it. They obviously have a deeper level of understanding than I do or than most people do. But at the basic level, I think people can make very good financial decisions doing research on their own.
Right.
You know, we have now an entire generation of people that grew up using Googling as a verb. We have an entire generation of people who are very savvy at finding information on the internet. And the cool thing about investing is that publicly traded companies are required by law to post everything on the internet. So if you look hard enough, you can find all of the answers to your investing questions online.
Yeah.
And I just feel like I want to empower everybody to do this on their own. There are so many good resources online for you to, you know, start your own investing journey if you haven't already, or for you to continue it.
That was a really nice pro tip / advice that you could give to encourage people who, you know, the stock market and all these investment knowledge, it could be really intimidating.
Oh, for sure.
To, you know, for those of you who don't have enough experience, it does seem very intimidating. And I was intimidated by all the amount of knowledge when I first met the stock market.
Well, you also, you know, you speak 2 languages. You have Korean and English. And with the stock market, there's jargon. There's very specific language.
Right,
so you had to learn it twice.
I had to. I mean, it didn't have anything to do with my English skills. I had to learn everything just newly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, Douglas just gave us nice encouragement that we can do it, that we can all do it.
Don't, you know, overcome that language barrier, and the stock market is its own language. And once you get that terminology down, you're golden.
Okay.
And once you learn how to read an income statement, balance sheet, cash flow, then you're golden.
All right. Then with this pro tip on our minds, let's jump into the first question. So this is one topic that I really wanted to talk about. So I noticed that there are differences between the U.S. stocks that Americans are buying versus the U.S. stocks that Koreans are buying. We call the Korean investors as 서학개미, if you have ever heard of this expression.
I haven't. Can you explain that to me?
So 서학개미. So 개미, like Robinhooders, like retail investors, it's how we express the small individual investors in Korean. We call them 개미, and that means ants. So it could be...
I knew that word.
Yeah, you knew it. So yeah, and 서학 means Western. So it means that the retail investors who are invested in Western stocks, I guess, in short. So 서학개미 and Robinhooders show different kind of traits in their trading investment methods.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Or they're just like what they favor in, you know.
Can I take a moment? 서학개미 as a term, being ants here, that's really an interesting coincidence because with the GameStop and AMC situations around the short squeeze all year, investors have been calling themselves ants.
Seriously?
Seriously. On Reddit.
I thought it was apes.
Yeah, apes and ants both.
Oh.
So apes are the ones that are kind of leading the charge, providing the information and whatnot. But especially with AMC, even more than GME, with AMC, the investors are kind of viewing themselves as ants. Oh.
Yeah,
this right here, this is an actual depiction of an AMC investor. Right here. Hey, little guy, how many shares do you have? That's YouTube content right there.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, apes and ants are kind of the terminologies here for this.
This is really surprising.
Yeah, so the gimi, that's actually amazing that that's being used both ways. And
exactly. Yeah.
it has this connotation of a very hard worker where everybody does their part in a small way, like a colony of ants. And with AMC and GME, you know, the retail investors, they're constantly trying to trigger a short squeeze. So the whole concept is every ant buys a share when they can afford a share. Everybody does their part to take away the ability of any institutions that are short positions to come up with the shares. So you buy, you hold, you do your part as an ant, you do your part as an ape. So
okay. Well, that was really interesting to know. I didn't know that retail investors were being called as ants, just as they were being called in Kemi in Korean.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
It's really only associated with the short squeeze stocks, so not in general.
Not in general.
Yeah, but with AMC and GME, you do see the word ants.
Okay. So that was one interesting other knowledge that we just picked up there.
Bonus.
So, yeah, well, anyways, back to the original question. So, could you give us a compare and contrast kind of a thing between the US stocks that are mostly bought by Americans versus Koreans?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, just going back a month, if we look at some of the US stocks that are pretty highly purchased in Korea, you have companies like Airbnb, Tesla, the SPY ETF, and Amazon. And none of those are really surprising. That's just...
No.
Yeah, that's... Okay, yeah, everybody buys those.
Right.
Except for Airbnb. This was a relatively recent IPO, so it has had more attention. And when I was looking into this, I was thinking about it. And when most of my Korean friends are traveling around the country, the first thing that they do is look for a place to stay on Airbnb.
Oh. Okay.
And I know that's anecdotal, and you're not supposed to invest on anecdotes, but I can personally see the popularity of the company in Korea with at least 20-somethings, 30-somethings using it. And with COVID, the economy went down, unemployment is relatively high. People need additional sources of income, and Airbnb does provide people with that. And so in Korea, especially with the housing market here, for most people, their most expensive asset is their home. I mean, that's global, but it's really true in Korea. And I think that Airbnb provides a really great opportunity for people. Now, if you look at the US market, some of the most traded stocks, just for the month of June, I went and I looked at the top 10, and I was a little shocked, a little surprised. The top half of that list had 4 short squeeze candidates, frankly.
Like GME?
GME's not on there, but like GME, yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got AMC, Torchlight, which I talked about on the news channel this morning, Wish, and Clover Health.
But this is quite shocking.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is that there's high trading volume on these. And, the companies are not what most people would consider to be like value investments or something that you're buying for future potential. The sentiment around these sentiment stocks is just buy for the short squeeze, hold, be a good little ant. And, I don't really subscribe to investing for those reasons. So maybe it's my own bias coming through when I look at this, but I was surprised. When I saw that.
I'm surprised too. I wouldn't expect that people would, make this amount of big straight purchases just for the short squeeze.
Yeah. Something that might not happen.
Something that might not even happen. It doesn't really have anything to do with the fundamentals of the company.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. And that's what's so shocking to me. And then if you keep moving through that top 10 list, right around the middle of the list, these are a little out of order, but you have Sundial, which is a marijuana company. And in my mind, it's absolutely the worst marijuana company you can invest in, frankly.
Why?
I could say that because this is YouTube. So Sundial has a huge cash flow problem.
Okay.
And they are not very good at running the business efficiently. They spend way more than they make. And the way they've been solving this problem for years is issuing new shares.
Okay.
So you end up with a highly diluted share. Like if you go to FinViz or something right now, finviz.com, okay? Look up the US stocks, sort them reverse by market cap. It's going to have the smallest market cap of the US stocks and one of the highest share volumes there.
Oh.
Yeah, so it is a very diluted stock, and I think it's only trading around $1, so it's a penny stock right now.
Okay.
But it's one of the highest volume, most traded stocks, so there are people liking this. There are people trading this. I don't understand why, but it's on that list.
So for those of you who are interested in marijuana-related stocks,
don't buy
weed
Sundial.
stocks, don't buy Sundial. That's a tip coming from Douglas. I mean,
go for Tilray. I mean, Tilray and
Tilray.
Afria, the merger, that is like an actual solid company with future potential.
Okay.
I mean, there's High Tide. That's another one that I'm not. This is not investment advice. This is not financial advice. But seriously, a company like High Tide, at least you could see their plan.
Of course.
So, but Sundial, I don't know what they're doing. They're just selling shares. They sell more shares than marijuana. So.
Okay. So it's surprising that people are buying these Sundial this much.
Yeah, I think a lot of retail investors right now, especially some of the new ones, they don't take the time to really learn some basics of the market. And they see a stock with a share price of $1 and they think, hey, that's a cheap stock.
Let's go in.
Yeah, let's do it. $1, holy cow, gee willikers. So, they go in on it for $1 and they don't realize the market cap is what matters with the company.
Of course.
You have a company like Chipotle that's, I don't know, over $1,200 a share. I would rather buy a fraction of a share of Chipotle than a single share of Sundial.
Okay.
So, also on that top 10 list, let's get back on track.
Okay.
Ford.
Ford.
The American automaker. So
that's acceptable.
Yeah, that's a reasonable one, for a high trade volume. They also have a lot of shares outstanding. They've had some debt problems in the past, but there's been a lot of excitement around the company. The recent release of the Mustang Mach-E, which is their kind of answer to Tesla's cars. And its reviews have been very good early on for the Mach-E. So Ford is making a big transition into EVs. But they had possibly the best PR that a company can ask for. Earlier in June, President Biden got in Ford's new truck, their new F-150, and he drove it on the test track. And this was on TV. You have the President of the United States asking his Secret Service, his security, for permission to get in the truck and drive it on the test track. And, he gets in this truck. There's videos online. He floors it. And he gets out of the truck. He's talking about how much fun it is to drive. He's talking about the acceleration.
Yeah, I saw photos of that.
You can't ask for better PR.
Exactly.
Right. This is great exposure for the company. And so there's been a lot of excitement around Ford in the month of June since that.
Best PR in their history.
Yeah, for real. For real. I mean, how often does a sitting president do something like that?
Exactly.
So past that, the other stocks are basic. They're what you would expect. Apple, AMD, Tesla, and Palantir.
Okay, they're all tech related and they're all acceptable big companies with good fundamentals. Okay.
Yeah.
So we did figure out what are on the top lists with the biggest trade volume in both Korean market and US market. Then now let's do some compare and contrast between the two.
Yeah, sure. Well, obviously, the only one that's common between the two is Tesla. And I think that speaks a lot to the brand recognition that Tesla has built. The company's not profitable yet, but they are increasing their revenue. And, whether it's due to Elon Musk's flamboyant personality or something else, Tesla's just doing great all around the world. And you've probably noticed this as much as I have. Every day in Korea, it seems like we see more and more Teslas.
And more Teslas on the road.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like street parked on the side.
That is true.
Yeah, for anybody who's watching this outside of Korea, there's a lot of street parking in Korea. A lot. So you're walking down the street and there's like, oh, there's a Maybach. Oh, that car's worth more than my life. Or you've got Teslas everywhere. And it's really shocking that you have so many Teslas here.
Yeah,
but the EV English is hard. The EV infrastructure in Korea is much more developed than it is in America. And a lot of that has to do with Korea's geographical size. It's easier to put charging stations within nearby access.
Yeah.
So there is a faster adoption of EV cars here, and Hyundai and Kia have a ton of EV options already.
Right.
So, but still, Tesla is growing here. But also, if we look at this, like just a comparison between the Korean and the American investors right now, I would say that the Korean investors are a little more risk averse
Okay.
with their U.S. investments.
They try to avoid risk.
It seems that way.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's a lot behind that. I don't exactly know why, but their investments are very justifiable. They're very safe. I mean, you can't get much safer than the SPY ETF.
True that.
I mean, if anybody comes to me and they're like, Doug, I'm starting investing. What should I buy? The first thing I say is like SPY or VLO or VTI, like a broad market index tracking ETF. Consistent growth, 8% a year, you know. So that makes sense. Or Amazon, Airbnb, or Tesla. You know, these are recognizable brands. These are large cap stocks.
Very reasonable.
Yeah. The U.S. investors are crazy.
So he just said that. He said that the U.S. investors are crazy.
Nuts. You look at these top stocks, and other than like Ford and the tech stocks that are in that top 10, you know, you've got people that are investing in something specifically hoping to trigger a short squeeze.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of ways to look at this. You could look at this and say, okay, if they trigger the short squeeze, all they have to do is hit one, and they're set. Right? So they're playing that game where, okay, if I invest in like 5 short squeezes, if one of the squeezes happens, I don't have to worry about investing for the rest of my life. You know, something like that.
Yeah.
But if none of them hit, you're out your money because these are not fundamentally sound companies. So I really think that investing into a company for the hopes of triggering a short squeeze with a large percent of your portfolio is foolish.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
I think fundamentals should always come first. And it's okay to, you know, throw some money at some of these short squeeze stocks. You know, if you want to buy 10 shares of Wish, whatever your percent is. But my rule of thumb on my channel and what I talk to people about is none of my positions are over 2% of my portfolio. And the riskier ones are even lower than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was a very interesting analysis that you gave us there, that the Korean investors tend to be a little more safer, whereas the U.S. investors, as you said, were crazy.
Yeah.
They were going nuts.
Yeah, they're going nuts over here. And, you know, I was thinking about this before I came on today.
Yeah.
And you remember the Bitcoin crash a couple years back and how that affected Korea? Yeah, specifically Korea. I mean, people lost their life savings. And Korea was faster to adopt cryptocurrency than other countries. And even back in 2017, 2018, you had elderly people putting their retirements, putting their pension money into cryptocurrency, into Bitcoin, losing it on the crash. And that is tragic.
It is.
And the fallout from that was tragic. And I mean, it's not something to take lightly because people are losing their money.
Yeah.
But I think some huge event like that in Korea's mind, or even going back historically to the end of the 90s with the financial collapse, you know, that, and then the great financial crisis affected Korea in 2007, 2008. It affected the whole world. So Korea has more of these events in recent history where people are a little more guarded with their money. So, you know, that's 3 events in the last 21 years or 23 years in Korea. And the U.S. really has only had 1 because cryptocurrency wasn't high enough. So I think U.S. investors are just
risking their life savings.
They're a little more risk on right now. I don't know how else to say it.
Okay, that's just like, you know, it's just a characteristic that we can see, we can get by only viewing the top traded stocks. So it's not, you know, we're not trying to generalize.
Right,
here.
and it's a small sample size. It's June.
Of course.
But, you know, you can, it's kind of shocking, even though it's a small sample size, you could see the divergence there.
Right. So, yeah, it was very interesting. But, yeah, there is no generalizing here. It's just some of the traits that we picked up from
just
June.
YouTube content.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. So yeah, we did that compare and contrast between Americans and Koreans. So that's it.